So tonight's demonstration is by Judith Repke, and she is going to show us how she does her palette knife oil paintings that are absolutely phenomenal. So a big round of applause for Judy.
Yeah, this one actually was shown at Art Skill as in a jury show. And it's been on other shows as well. I have a degree in art from University of Missouri at Columbia, and I was an art teacher for about 3 years, and the children, so I didn't do any, I didn't really do any art when I had children, and so then after that, I unfortunately, when the children were out of school, I unfortunately was divorced, so I had to go work, and I had to do a job, so I couldn't do any painting. So I just started painting recently, and Susan Sarbach, who's in California, was the first workshop that I went to, and she was teaching palette knife oil painting. And so that's where I started with palette knife oil painting. And you can find her online. And her school is called the School of Light and Color. But when I went, they were doing workshops in the Napa Valley, and we would go and paint at the wineries.
Yeah.
So it was a
Pretty nice.
fun workshop. Yes. And recently I've been online with the Julia K. Portrait Party, and I think Nora's been online with them as well.
Years ago, yeah.
And I just noticed so many different kinds of painting, so many different styles. I found it very exciting, and two of my favorite ones were Arturo and Magi. And there are two guys from Barcelona, and they both do either oil painting or acrylic. I know Arturo does oil, and Magi does, I think, acrylic, or maybe both. So they both have a kind of abstracted style. And Susan Sarbach said, as you look out at a landscape or whatever, look for three major shapes. And she started out as an abstract painter. So she looks at something first and abstracts it to get her composition. And she'll paint these three major areas, or maybe some more. So that was one of the things I learned from her, and one of the things I learned from Arturo was if you're doing palette knife painting, you should cover the whole thing with color first. Because then when you take your knife to lay strokes on there, they flow smoothly. Because your base painting is wet, and it allows you to, and the colors mix on the canvas. And this is one of the things I liked about watercolor, is because the colors flow together on the paper. And so I was looking for that same thing in oil painting, and when I saw how Arturo worked it, the mixed colors on the canvas. And he had an interesting idea. He's not a heavily planned painter. He works and it happens. And that's the same thing that happens with watercolor a lot. So if he puts down something with his palette knife and he doesn't like the look of it, he can scrape that up and just lay that color somewhere else. And the interesting thing about this method is that you get some color unity. So you don't have, in this one, there's some purple and blue, but there's some purple down in here too. So it helps you, and there's some definite purple along the horizon line. So it gives you some unity for the paint. And putting the base color down gives you some color unity too, because as you put your strokes of another color, all of it underneath has the base color of the paint. And some people do a base color of like a gray. It could be a warm gray or cool gray. Arturo would cover the whole canvas with the base color. Susan would just make her 3 different abstract areas, base colors, and then work on top of them with detail.
And is that oil that you're putting down or gesso?
Well, you got gesso first.
You gesso,
Yeah,
but not the color.
I got a gesso canvas. You know, I didn't
Okay.
put that on, but the base coating of oil paint is what allows your knife to flow over it. So,
So you're painting on a wet surface, right?
right. So you
Oh, yeah,
can,
because on a dry canvas, it's hard to put,
it won't get smooth.
yeah,
It-
it just, yeah, that's right.
So here, you know, when you drag your palette knife across, it's smooth, and it wouldn't do that. It would look a little bit like something that's up here. In other words, there's times when you want it to be smooth, and there's times when you want to drag it over and let it just kind of shake over the top, scumble over the top. But you can't get that difference if you don't put, you know, a base down. So,
Is this all done with knife,
yes.
the whole picture?
Very nice.
And the title of that piece, if I remember correctly, is The Badlands?
Badlands Evening.
Lindsay.
So it's a starting of the evening on the right-hand side. Oh, here's another thing, compositional thing, that a lot of people have said, is that you might want to make a dark area across from a dark area and a light area across from a light area. That kind of an X will give you an interesting composition. And I read that book, and I've heard Chris say it. He said, you know, if your painting looks kind of blah to you, you don't understand why it's looking kind of blah, you might try making that X, making a dark area across from a dark area and a light area across from a light area. And they're not going to be exactly the same color of light area, but at least somewhat lighter. So I'm going to take my oil paint, and I've got a paper palette, and the interesting thing about painting with palette knives is you don't really need any thinner to clean them up. You can just wipe them off with a towel. And this was one of the things that Susan, being a California gal, she didn't want us to cause any problems with the environment. And so we're not going to be dumping out turpentine on the ground. We were painting outside. We were doing plein air, which is outside. Gray is to use Prussian blue and burnt umber, or some kind of blue and burnt umber. I've been loving Prussian blue lately. So I'm gonna mix them into the white. So I'm getting a cold gray here. And here. I thought I would try this picture. So that's one I'm starting with my gray, which I'm gonna put all over the canvas. And palette knife paint takes a lot of paint.
So you don't use any medium prior to it?
I don't.
You don't?
I tell you, one of the other things I love about palette knife painting is it makes a fantastic heavy texture. And a lot of people will buy prints, but you cannot get the same effect with the print of the palette knife oil painting. So it's like, oh, you gotta buy the painting because you won't get the texture if you don't buy the painting.
Yeah, that's the thing I always liked about palette knife paintings is the texture you can get under it.
Yes. And you don't get that if you don't have heavy paint. But I'm gonna scrape the texture now because this is the base undercoating, so I don't want it doesn't have to be that thick. Did you see what happens if you don't have a base? You see how this happens here? So they have, if you don't have a base coat, it's what's going to happen the whole time you're trying to paint.
So you're putting base on right now?
Yes. So this is going to be the gray base coat. And so I'm not making it really textured. I'm just spreading it on here. Now, if I want to think about the X, maybe this is going to be the dark area, and this down here is going to be another dark area. Even though I'm doing a base coat, I could already be thinking about that idea. And sometimes when I use a picture as a reference, that doesn't mean that what I'm painting is going to end up looking like the picture. I get started and I just paint, and sometimes I just don't even look at the picture for a long time until I get stuck, and then I was like, okay, what is there in the picture that I could include? That would be interesting.
That painting that you're showing here, was that from memory or from another picture?
It was a photograph that I took
Photograph.
when we were in South Dakota. So this is South Dakota Badlands. And that's a special kind of grass. They had a wild horse place there where they just got these ones that were on the way to the glue factory and turned them loose out in the wild. But this particular kind of grass is very nutritious. And so they did thrive and began to reproduce. So we went to see the wild horses too.
Judy, what is that white stuff on the bottom corner?
Rock.
Oh, that's a rock.
Well, it's
Gravel.
pebbles, gravel.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of gravelly, rocky places there. They sent the Indians there. The land is not very tillable. It'll grow this nutritious grass. that, like buffalo or horses or, but it's not gonna be good to farm. You know, I looked at that.
So therefore they gave it to the Indians.
Exactly.
Yeah,
They-
it was another,
It was useless.
Well, we weren't always admirable, were we? But then again, I think the Indians killed each other off too. So they weren't always admirable either. What a broken world. Okay,
So you're mixing a lighter color in for the lighter areas?
yes. And I just decided to do that because I didn't want to, I'm gonna put it this big. Really keep stuff from falling off. I have, this is a nice light easel, but it's also, this sticks out so much and I'm small,
Yeah.
short arms, so it's like,
Right.
mm. So I'm taking some of Arturo's idea here of scraping off up there and working it in down here, just because I didn't want to mix the gray over again. So I'm using some of this gray up here to mix in. And this is one of those things like Nora was saying, is that you don't have to fuss at it and worry about it. It's playful. Playful with it. I'm basically just trying to get this covered.
So it doesn't matter what type of strokes you use?
Well, not on this part,
Not on that part.
not so much on this part. But like when you get into actually painting the scene and not putting down the undercoat, okay, at that point, yeah, you want to use different strokes and different textures to represent. So like the grass, you know, I'm going to use it up and down. In the background where I want it to be softer, I'll just smooth it.
So you do change the strokes?
Oh, yeah.
To go.
Oh, yeah. Definitely part of how my painting is the strokes. And water is generally horizontal strokes and pulled, you know, fairly smooth. But when you get to the edge of the water, then you take the side of your, that's where the kind of drag that scumbles is useful, because you can make your reflection drag it down that way. And then once you get the reflection, then you can come back lightly with some highlights, yeah, where the sun hits. see if there's any white canvas showing through. I'm trying to get rid of that.
It'd be a ticket.
And of course, here's the sort of cool thing about palette knife as opposed to brush is instead of cleaning my brush, I can just wipe my palette knife and paper towel.
How much would that painting sell for?
That one, I think I had 500 on it.
It's beautiful.
The variety of color, that's impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
it
like
just
the variety.
turned out, well, you never know. I
Isn't that true?
took a class from Maggie. Well, she's watercolorist anyway. We were out there in by Alton in the bird sanctuary, and she said, "Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate." But she says that you will give me the chance to fail, won't you? No one said yes. I know what she's talking about. I said, "Yeah, go ahead, fail."
How many different palette knives do you use?
This is my favorite one.
I can tell that.
Where did
That
you
would
get
be
that?
mine. I have one like that too.
I have this one,
It's not
it's
very good.
large, like makes a wider stroke. And I have a teeny tiny one that I could make little dabby strokes for, and that's probably,
And some of them have rounded tips and others are pointed.
yeah, this one definitely has a rounded, and that was probably these.
What do you use
Things.
the rounded tip for?
Hmm?
What's the good of the rounded tip?
Well, it makes a nice leaf stroke, you know, and I actually I don't like the sharp pointed ones. I have them,
Oh
We
my.
got those.
never figured out how I would want to use this. I mean, it's not like having a pointy brush to make a. Usually if I want to make branches, I'm going to take my favorite knife and I'm going to load the paint along the edge. And I'm going to do like that
Oh, yeah.
rather than the tip. All right, so now I'm looking up here. I think I'm going to go for the fluffy clouds. I'm going to take some white and go for the fluffy clouds up there. And you know, the clouds will automatically be different colors because they're going to mix. The paint's going to mix into the and yeah, I'm going to make, you know, cloud-shaped strokes. Fluffy cloud-shaped strokes. And then this part is really dark, so down below. And it's got sort of a purple glow to it. I run out of paper towels, demo's over.
It's amazing how you can draw or paint a rounded edge with a square tool or a straight tool. I tried it and I couldn't do it. Like you got rounded edges on your clouds. And you put that on with a palette knife.
Yeah. But it was a brown stroke.
Oh, okay.
Brown stroke. I got some good colors here. Let's try a little. Make some red and blue. And I think I took ultramarine this time. I think it makes a better purple. Nice. Okay.
Do you prefer oil over watercolor or acrylic?
I prefer it over acrylic. Not so much over watercolor. I think to me both of those I enjoy both of them.
Do you ever take a brush to it if you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't make a limit of that in that way. That one has very little brush on it. But I don't say to myself, well, no, you can't touch the brush. One time, Arturo wrote, one of my old brushes are nasty. You don't ever use a brush. And then later he did something I really used a brush on. I said, aha, you used a brush.
See what you mean by the smooth. Now that it's going on so smooth like icing.
Yes.
I used it. Brush.
One of the guys that was at Susan's Art says, butter it on, butter it on.
Let's see, yeah.
Does he do demos online?
That guy or Arturo?
Arturo?
Yes, he has demos on Flickr,
Flickr?
which is where the June portrait party is.
Okay, maybe.
You get locked out.
Yeah. Speaking of which, yeah.
I'll go home and try that.
What?
This?
Is the wife, Judy, gonna be like mountain cats or, just curious, it's pretty cool the way it looks.
Well, and you know what is interesting about palette knife is that sometimes it's just mysterious.
Oh, right, yeah.
And
I guess it, you know, the vision's in the eye of the beholder. You can, people like all of us would probably come up with something different right now.
exactly. And I have tried really hard to train myself not to tell people what to see in the painting. I might have meant something, but
Right.
I'm not, if they decide not to see what I saw, that's all right. tell them what to see. I had a lady that, it was something I had painted, and she thought it was snow, and I forget what I thought it was. And I corrected her, and she didn't buy it.
She's somewhere, yeah.
So I said, just leave people alone to see what they want to see. Oh, you're gonna touch it?
I'm touching the part that
Yeah, put it over here.
paint all over my fingers.
Put it on the table.
So Judy, she thought it was snow, and what was it?
I don't remember what it was.
But not snow.
Yes, correct. It was not snow. So I just, I think it might have been fog. I was trying to do fog. Fog is hard to do with palette knife because it's so soft. Although Magi does a wonderful job with fog and water the atmospheres, and I keep looking at it. How does he do that? Be something down here. Now, if I'm going to preserve this light area in the middle here, I have to drag the paint away from it. If I keep dragging, and if I want to keep it darker over here, then I have to drag it this way. And I think the sky is going to be better with horizontal strokes. Now, let me see if I can get the moon in there. It's cold. It's going to be, get it to hold pretty much light. Okay, going for the grass. Grass is going to turn kind of green, I think. Then I'm going to pull some of the grass up and make it look like, oh, it's the end of my, what is, my Charles was talking about. It's the end of the night. Some of this grass looks like it has a reddish brown. I'm probably painting my face now.
Do what?
It's part of the job.
Taking up grass grow up from the ground.
Judy, do you prefer painting with a palette knife or brushes?
Oh, I prefer painting with palette knife. I really found that, especially younger people, like, they like the mystery. I sold one recently to a young couple. It was all gray, but the gal said it was gray, black and white. And of course her walls were gray, so she's like, not there. But she said she liked the mystery of it. To look at it and not know immediately what it's all about. Just let your imagination play with it.
Love the grass.
Grass, honestly. Yeah, the grass is a lot of fun. And now we get some of those pebbly rocks. We were asking about before. And here's where I thought about it. Yeah, that's harder to do than pebbly rocks. And it's probably gonna need something over the top of it, texture-wise, after it's dry.
So you can go back after it's dry and put more coats on it?
Yeah, especially like if I want that rocky texture, and because I have put down the background paint, and it's leading me to have a smooth stroke. I will have to come back when it's drier so that I can
Texture,
go over the top of the texture and it will blend in. So, like these white colors here,
Right.
that has to go on after it's dry. It lays lightly over top of the texture that you established underneath. Lately, I've been having a lot of fun with paintings that I didn't like, taking them and turning them in a different direction and painting them over And then all of the texture that was underneath, now not only do I have an under painting, but I have an under texture. Yes, it's fun.
How thick do you sometimes make your textures? I've seen some paintings with pretty thick globs of,
Yeah, there would be pretty thick blobs.
Takes less thick forever for them to dry.
To fully dry, you know, I've had them dry in a couple of weeks. Well, nothing like watercolor, which you have to fight to keep it from drying. Yeah, and sometimes people talk about what you need. Some dark areas, some medium tones, and some really dark darks to make the painting high. So I think it's time for me to try and put in these really dark darks up here. And then I'm going to rest because I'm really tired. I'm working up a sweat. Okay, now let's see if I get my favorite colors for black. This is brown and Prussian blue.
Bob Ross says you can mix thin oil paint over thick oil paint without smearing it. Is that true?
If the thick oil paint is dry,
He does it all in 20 minutes.
yeah, I wouldn't try it.
It's true though.
I
It's
don't
gotta be
think it
thin
would.
enough though.
Yeah.
I don't think it would work for me. Possibly because I don't believe in it. Maybe if I believe it would work. Okay, this is my black. Black, Prussian blue, and burnt sienna. Okay, so there's a big bushy area right here. I painted this in watercolor before, and what I thought about this bushy area was, it kind of looked like it's got arms coming up, you know?
Right.
And I was like, I called the painting, Who's Coming?
You call it what?
Who's Coming?
Oh, okay.
Because in that area, the Indian tribes might have something like kachinas,
Okay.
their spirits that, maybe that's a kachina. And some people say about your composition that you should have it in threes. So if I have dark elements, I probably should have 3 dark elements. And some people say mama, baby, and child. And so I have or mother, father, and child, or something like that. And of course, the big one is the father, and then the smaller is mother, and the smallest one is And they also compositionally break that intense horizontal. And I probably, I probably need to go back and pull the grass up with water.
Make sure.
I'd like to come next month.
And I probably, I'm gonna be finished because I'm tired,
That's it, huh?
but,
We've had a good start.
yeah. And I probably, when I do something, I'll probably set up somewhere around my house. And I'll walk by it, and all day long. If I see something, that I don't like, I can go back and change it.
While it's still wet, are you talking about, or?
Or
You
after
just,
it's
you just
dry.
add paint or
Yeah,
whatever?
whatever, to make it work.
How you gonna get that home without messing it up?
I have a crochet box. See, I've got a box there.
Oh,
I'm not gonna touch it yet.
On this chair.
I figured you had a way to do it because you do a lot of plein air type of stuff.
Yeah.
oil painting is very nice.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I started out oil painting and I had also children at the time.
Yeah, it
Oh, that was the worst thing I could have done.
does.
So with your painting, you don't use any turpentine or any thinner?
No. Because I'm doing, oh, maybe when I sign my name. If I'm gonna take a little
Did
bitty
you ever
brush.
use any with oils?
Not really.
Oh,
And then you don't have to breathe it.
Yeah.
right, that would be my problem, I wouldn't be able to breathe it, so.
Is that Clorox wet or dry?
It's wet. It is disinfecting wipes, but for a cleanup on oil paint hands
Really?
when you're not around the sink.
Jerry, when I first joined Northside, almost everybody did oils.
Really?
Yeah. And there was a couple, several, who really did have a problem with the turpentine and oils, the chemicals and so on. They still did it, but they,
And slowly kill
Suffered
themselves.
they probably slowly killed themselves.
Wow.
If it wasn't for some alcohol.
So Judy, if you had one piece of advice for everybody for oil painting, one thing you want them to really know on leaving your demo, what would it be?
Have fun and play.
That's what it looks like you
Yeah.
just do anything you want, it'd be fun.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, a huge round of applause for Northside Zone. Judith Repke. Focused in North St. Louis County, Northside Art Association is a nonprofit 501c3 arts organization that serves local artists through community exposure, networking, education, and peer interaction. Learn more about Northside Art Association at www.northsideartassociation.org.